Hi there and welcome. I'm Tom, and this is a review of the DF83V. It's a very full-featured and versatile grinder, but it does have distinct improvement potential. Pulling back the curtain on the grinder, I also want to pull back the curtain and give you full transparency. I was actually sent this grinder directly from the factory in China, organized by the wonderful Anna at DF64coffee.com, from whom I'd purchased 7 grinders at retail previously. But this time, this was sent to me in exchange for doing a review. Now, my invitation to you is to, if you think this might make me biased, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but I'd invite you to keep an open mind on that one until the end of the review and then make that judgment call. Let's get going. Oh, by the way, do go and visit our sponsor, which is, of course, me, at tomsgrinderlab.com. If you go there, you'll be able to download this espresso troubleshooting and optimization guide. It's not just a 1 or 2 page document. It's a full-blown checklist so you can have a look at the symptoms of what's happening with your espresso and get a bullet point suggestions on how to fix it and optimize so you've got full-bodied, tasty espresso. So let's have a look at our agenda. We're going to have a look at the summary up front. I know everyone rushes to the end to get the conclusion. I give you the conclusion up the front, so you don't have to do that, and you can hang around and get all the details after that. The specifications, have a look at it in the Grinder Lab, actually working, look at retention and workflow, what I don't like about it, what I like the most about it, and who it is best for, and who should probably steer clear of it. So let's get to the conclusion up front. I rate each grinder for 6 characteristics: aesthetics, workflow, value, espresso, filter, and milk. And you'll notice distinctly that I have rate the stock burrs on my impressions for how much I like them for espresso, as distinct from filter, as distinct from milk, because some people will drink all 3 every day, like I do. Some people would only have milk, some people only have espresso, and it's no good you buying a grinder on the basis that I think it's terrific for filter if you're only drinking espresso-based milk drinks. Okay, so for aesthetics, only giving it 1 bean out of 5. I will unpack all the reasons why I've given each of these what I've given them, but 1 out of 5, primarily because I think the funnel kind of looks like it's just been stuck on top, the dosing funnel, and I think it could have been integrated better. For workflow, 5 out of 5. It's got everything you need. Take the bellows off, you don't need them. It's got a plasma generator, it's got an auger, it's got everything, and it's really, really easy to use from a workflow point of view. No RDT required. Value, I'm going to give it 5 out of 5 stars, and I'll unpack that. But essentially, if you look at the other options on the marketplace, this is very, very good value. For espresso, I'm going to give it 4 out of 5 beans. I do have a couple of burrs that I personally prefer. This is all obviously incredibly subjective. You might give it 5 out of 5 stars. You might give it 2 or 3. I don't know. But the espresso, the DF83 espresso burrs are very, very good. Make no mistake about that. And by the way, when I say I prefer other burrs, that's just a personal preference. It's not that there's anything wrong with these burrs. These are very, very good burrs. And I'm giving it 4 out of 5 for filter as well, because I do think they're very good. Now, DF make a specific espresso burr, which you can use for filter, and it's not bad, but they also make a dedicated filter burr, which just is worth an extra bean in my view. So 4 out of 4 for espresso and for filter. And I'm giving it exactly the same for milk. Personally, for milk, I have a preference for the DF64V stock burrs. They're a DF 64 mil flat burr. For milk, I think they give so much chocolate flavors punching through the milk that might be one for you to look at if you're just only a milk drinker. But this is what I mean by it's quite a versatile grinder. The stock burrs can do a good job of all 3. The filter burrs, if you are only a filter drinker, will keep you pretty happy just for filter, and ditto for the espresso burrs. So we'll go to key specific features. Let's have a rattle through these. What do we got here? It's a vertically mounted 83 mil flat burr, which is distinct from something like a Duo, which is horizontally mounted. As a stepless grind adjustment, very important on a premium grinder. It's a brushless DC 680 watt motor, which will run between 300 and 1600 RPM. Plasma generator, no RDT or bellows needed. Even though it comes with bellows, just put them away somewhere because you're not going to need them. 8.8 kg, it's pretty solid. If that's any indication of quality, then it's pretty good quality. It's very I put this here because it's quite distinctive. It's long, slim, and tall. So there are the dimensions there. But yeah, it's slimmer than any other grinder that I know of in the 83 mil format, but it is also longer. One of the concerns people have when they're looking to buy a grinder and get it shipped internationally is it going to arrive in one piece? And I can tell you that with the DF grinders, they all have. I've had 9 of them arrive on my front doorstep. This is the DF83V alongside the DF54V in the original box. They all come double boxed, and they all come very, very well insulated from scratches or getting dropped. So this is the inside of the package. When you open it up, you'll see everything like most grinders these days, but I do think that these ones are particularly well protected from drop. So let's have a look at some of the distinctive features. One of them is that in this particular grinder, it has a separate on-off power supply button. So this is the power supply button at the base of the grinder, and then you can have that on permanently. There's a little red light glowing, or you can turn it off if you don't like the red light glowing overnight. And this is the on-off to starts the burr, starts the motor. So that's a distinctive feature. A lot of grinders don't have that. I do like the really big dial. I've got a close-up photo here, but it's stepless and it's very, very smooth. It's very easy to adjust, and it's got these nice big numbers. And for someone who needs glasses, this is a godsend, because there are too many grinders out there that has these chintzy little numbers with tiny, tiny type font, and you've really got to get it down and get it exactly right. Not with this one. Now, the distinctive feature of the DF83V is it has an auger. Now, the auger, to my mind, is there's also, by the way, another distinctive feature there, which I'll show you in a moment, which is these springs around here. But the auger is essentially a slow feeder. It's not really a pre-crushing separate burr. In my view, when you take out the burrs and just run beans through here, you get pretty big chunks of beans. So it's not doing a great job of pre-crushing. I don't think it's designed to do that. I think it's just designed to slow feed the birds. Another distinctive feature, as I mentioned, is the number of springs that are used when you're adjusting the grind setting. So these springs will compress and they'll expand depending on how far and you've got the grind setting screwed. The fact that there are 6 of them means that compression and expansion is incredibly even. Do you need 6? I don't know. I'm not a grinder engineer, but I'm impressed that there are 6, because most grinders of this size will have 3 or 4. So I think that just demonstrates, if nothing else, a little bit of extra care and attention that's gone into the functional design of this grinder, if not the aesthetics design, unfortunately. Here's a lineup of the other DF grinders. We've got the DF54 over here. I've got a review on that coming soon. The DF64V, one of my all-time favorites, the DF64 Gen 2. I do have a full review of that on my channel if you want to check it out. And here, looking a bit bigger than it really is because of the angle, is the DF83V. So that's what it looks like in the flesh, so to speak. Let's have a look at the grinder lab. So we're going to go into the grinder, have a look at RPM, look at power usage, and we're going to look at workflow, and we're going to look at retention. Do a big shout out for this month's sponsor of the video, which is Monastery Coffee in South Australia. This blend is the Genjai Chala. I have a subscription to Monastery Coffee, but they're kind enough also to send me 1 kilo of beans. So when I'm working with a grinder and reviewing the grinder, I've got plenty of beans to put through the grinder. So thank you to the good people at monastery.coffee. So here we are in the grinder lab. First thing I've done is popped the DF83V on a little carousel so you can see what it looks like from all angles. It really is, I think it's a beautiful looking grinder, other than the dosing funnel at the top. I have to say it does look a bit better once you take off the bellows. I did a lot of RPM testing, and forgive me, please, because you can't actually see the numbers on the stroboscope, but I did stroboscope test for RPM at 400 RPM. It came out about 382. I did it again at 800 RPM. Again, it was very, very close. Again, at 1200 RPM, and then 1600 RPM. I won't show you them all because you can't actually see the dial that clearly, but rest assured that what you're seeing on the dial when you select an RPM is exceptionally close to what you're actually getting in terms of the burr spinning. For retention test, I had to use jewelry scales because there was so little retention. I need to measure past 0.1 of a gram. So you can see there's 0.05 of a gram. Using the lunar scales, it came out at 0.1 of a gram, simply because the lunar's not capable of measuring any lighter than that. Anything that registers is going to be 0.1. So very, very low retention. Grind and puck speed prep, just to show you the grinder in action. I've sped this up a bit just to save you the boring details. For this particular one, I used a Swarks puck rate, and then followed by an RO WTDT spinning tool. That's you can get the ARO. It's very good. It's very well priced and does a good job of consistency. Paper filter goes on top just to protect the group head from getting coffee grinds in there. And let's go to another angle and have a look at the pour. As I said, being supplied by monastery.coffee. Thank you. And this is the Weber Uni basket, one of my favorite baskets, high extraction basket. And what I'm looking for here, and you'll see that there are parts where coffee's coming out of, and there are other parts where the espresso is not coming out of. Don't worry about that. Just look for the evenness of color across the basket as it cascades from that basket. And you'll see that the color pouring into the cup is pretty even at this point. And that's the marker of a well-distributed puck. So pretty happy with that pour. Right, let's have a look at what I'm not a big fan of in respect to the DF83V. The first thing is the on-off switch, which I think is a good idea. It cuts the power off if you don't want to have that LED light running all night. And then you have you turn that on, and then you have the separate on-off button for the motor. So power button, motor button. My complaint with it is it looks a bit industrial. It's very high quality. It'll probably last you 100 years. It's designed to be turned off and on probably multiple times every day for 30 years before the rubber wears out. So top quality, no question about that, but I just think there could be a more elegant solution. Speaking of elegant solutions, I really, really don't like this sticker. Now, there's an explanation for that. DF tell me that they made the sticker like that so that if you're swapping out burr sets or you do a deep clean and the chirp is not at zero at midnight, so to speak, then what you can do is you can simply peel the sticker off and move it. I've tried it. It does work very well. The glue that I've used means that A, it's relatively easy to get off, and B, it will stick on very well again. I do worry about if you do that a lot of times, not most people won't, but if you do that a lot of times, whether you're going to lose some glue. And I just don't like the look of it. I think there's got to be a more elegant solution, and I'll look forward to that with the next version of the DF83V. Another little quirk is this anti-popcorn plate. Now, what happens is you pour the beans into the funnel, they cascade around the plate, and that plate stops the fragments of of beans flying up, back out. So it's a good idea. What it needs to have is it needs to be on a slight angle, because every now and then, not very often, you just have a bean that just sits there and stubbornly refuses not to go plunge into its death in the teeth of the auger, and then the grinder burrs. So I just think that if you want to take the risk and you could just push that down a little bit, maybe create a little bit of an angle. The DF64V doesn't have that problem because it's already on an angle when you're pouring the beans in. As I've already alluded to, biggest thing I don't like is that side on this thing looks like, can you see the resemblance there? So I just think, with the bellows particularly, it looks like it's been stuck on. It doesn't fit with the form of the rest of the grinder. I'd like to see it a little flatter. I'd like to see it integrated into the body of the main grinder. And you don't need the bellows. And I must say, if you take them off, things do look a little bit better. But I can't help but having this in my brain every time I go to the espresso bench in the morning. Next thing I think could be better, but it's adequate, is the manual. And the biggest thing is I want a QR code on there. I want a video link to that QR code so that when you're doing a deep clean, you can go back and have a look at things like, how do you get the collar off? And the answer is that you really open up the dial to a high number, which will allow the springs to release. And then you open up this collar, unwind that, take it all off. And when you're putting it back on, you do exactly the reverse. Is you're putting the collar on first, tightening it up. So this is at midnight, or hopefully it comes back to midnight. If not, as I said, you can move the sticker. And then you're winding in the dial and making sure that chirp is at zero and at midnight. So you can't put that in a very short double-sided A4 piece of paper. It needs to be a QR code, and it needs to be linked to a YouTube video or something like that. And I think this is an opportunity for every grinder manufacturer, and especially DF, to steal a march on the competitors by having these instructional videos sitting on YouTube. So whatever grinder you buy, you've got instructional video, because it's so much easier to see and replicate what you're seeing than it is to read through something. So that's my recommendation, is that DF Coffee and other grinder manufacturers actually get more information, more training information, more tips, more techniques, more reasons why behind the design or behind the sticker or behind the burr set. So people want that information, especially when they're buying what is, I think, a premium endgame grinder. All right, so I'll stop moaning. What do I like about it? Well, clearly, I'm a big fan of the burrs. So at the top here, you have the brew burrs and you have the espresso burrs here. You can buy the grinder with one or the other, or you can buy them with one and get the other burr set as an extra. Ideally, you'd have two grinders, one for espresso, one for filter. That's an ideal world. You can use the espresso burrs for filter, but I would recommend that if you're really into filter coffee, that you get a dedicated grinder for your filter coffee. Saves a lot of fluffing around. I do like the slim form factor. Take off the bellows for a moment. Let's put them in between two niche duos, and you'll see without the bellows, it suddenly looks a lot slimmer and a lot less daunting in terms of the locomotive thing. And yeah, I like the look of the niche duos, but I really like the slim form factor of this thing. As I said, without the bellows, it's a lot better looking. So the other thing I like is having variable RPM. The dial itself is very easy to use. You can get it to within 300 to 400 to 500. So you can get it showing the exact number that you want very quickly and easily. As I said, with the stroboscope test, I confirmed the RPM is very accurate. And it goes from 300, I think, from memory to 1600 RPM, although that is in the specs. But I do like having this as a feature. If you're wanting less fines, you can have lower RPM, higher fines. You're a little more likely, as I understand it, I haven't tested this personally. If you like espresso, you want some fines in there. So I'll typically run my RPM for the DF83V at around 1,000, 1,200 RPM if I'm doing espresso, but if I'm doing filter, then I'll be running at around 400 RPM. You will get stalls with variable speed grinders. Almost every single one will actually stall if you run it at, say, 400 RPM with a cinnamon light or a Nordic light roasted bean. You're going to get it stalling unless you slow feed the beans. It's not a biggie. You just have to manage it. So don't go complaining to the grinder companies that these things are faulty. They're not faulty. It's just what happens with variable RPM. If you don't want that, get a niche duo. There's not variable RPM. It runs at 530 RPM, which is probably around about the sweet spot if you're going to have one fixed RPM. So just bear in mind that if you're going to use low RPM with super light roasted beans, you're going to have to slow feed them. The auger does more of a job of semi-slow feeding the beans, but it's still not, in my view, doing a good enough job of slow feeding the beans. So just pour them into the funnel a little slower. The other thing I like about the DF83V is that if you buy it from DF64coffee.com, and check with your local supplier on this because they might do the same, they do not void your warranty like Niche Duo say they will if you swap the burrs out. So if you use some SSP burrs in your DF83V, so long as you don't mangle anything, if there is an unrelated problem with your grinder, you haven't voided the warranty. Now, bear in mind that any supplier is going, if you've got a problem, is going to ask you for the symptoms. Then they might even ask you for a small video you can do on your phone and send them. Be patient with them, okay? They need that information to adequately diagnose the problem. It's not an evasive technique. It's a protocol that they go through that has integrity to make sure they can help you with the most appropriate solution. So, on that note, value for money, I think I do like that about the DF83V. I think it's a really good bang for bucks, potentially an end-game grinder for most people. If you compare it to what else is out there, and you have a look at the Sado, the E37S, which is also 83 mil flat burrs, uses this Opal Glide burrs, which are exceptionally good burrs. So the DF83V is going to set you back half the price of this grinder. A great grinder though it is. And DF83V, you get the plasma generator, you get variable RPM, so you get a whole lot more as well. If you look at, say, an EG1, a Weber EG1, well, you're looking at 3 times the price for the EG1 than you are for the DF83V. Personally, I loved my EG1. I thought it was took pride of place on my copy bench, but I sold it once I found that for espresso, the burrs were average. That's what I have. In my opinion, they were average. The little Swiss Miss, the Mocha SD, Olympia Mocha SD, ran rings around it in terms of espresso, and I think also so does the DF83V. So if you've got a DF380V or you're considering getting one versus a Weber EG1, and you're an espresso drinker, then I'd definitely be pointing you in the way of the DF83V. Pretty similar for the Sado. The thing about the Sado is the build quality is exceptional. The burrs that come standard, the Sado Opal Glide, are exceptional burrs for light roasted coffee. They do fit in the DF83V. I have tested them. They don't fit in the Niche Duo, but they do in the 83V. So speaking about the Duo, I really like the Niche Duo. There's lots of reasons I like them. I'll probably do a separate review on that. I will do a comparison between the V and the Duo, so make sure you subscribe so you get notification of that. The Duo, last time I checked, was about 15% more of the cost than the V. It doesn't have a plasma generator. It frankly doesn't need one. The retention is so low without one. It doesn't have variable RPM. That doesn't put me off. I like variable RPM. If I could have it on this, I would wave a magic wand and I would get it, but it's still an exceptionally good grinder. But it is 15% more. You have to decide. I think to me, it primarily comes down to aesthetics, whether you prefer the look of the slender, tall DF83V, or you like the shape, the roundness of the Niche Duo. So, who's this best for? I think this is a really, really good option. It should be one of your probably 2 or 3 top options if you're wanting a good value in-game 83 mil flat grinder. Also, I think if you want to swap burrs under warranty, there's the potential for you to have the peace of mind of being able to swap burrs and not voiding your warranty with the DF83V. As I said earlier, the DF64coffee.com, Anna will honor the warranty so long as your burr swapping hasn't mangled something. Whereas with the Niche Geo, they're quite explicit that they will not cover any problems with your grinder if you have swapped the burrs for one of the two non-stock burrs. So that's worth something. You may want to switch from espresso to brew. This is a pretty good option because the brew burrs and the espresso burrs are both world class. FAF less single dose grinding. If you want single dose grinding, but you don't want the FAF that often goes with RDT and bellows, etc., etc., this is a good option. But it's not for those with the fear of steam trains. Hope you enjoyed my little review, and make sure you click the like, make sure you subscribe, because there are other reviews coming your way, also the comparison between the V and the Niche Geo. Cheers.